All right, if that's the case, this is Kathy and Colleen. I'm Colleen.
I'm Kathy.
And I'm thinking the title, I was just thinking, I took a bathroom break and then I came back and pressed the wrong button.
She pressed delete on the hour and a half we have podcasted.
Maybe it's still there. Blaze can revive
Lord,
it. That would be so funny. I don't know if I can do another hour and a half.
This
like
is
an hour maybe.
This is
our
funny. First
podcast attempt. I'm thinking maybe
losing power.
No, that's just it's moving in relation to our voices talking. Right. But I think what I was thinking maybe like Glitter Queen Speaks, Glitter Queen something for the title of the podcast. What do you think?
Glitter Queen Epics, Glitter Queen and Descendants.
That's long though.
Glitter Queen Tales.
Oh, Glitter Queen Tales. That's kind of good.
That's
sort of fairy tale-esque.
Kind of fairy tale-esque, and glitter is fairy tale-esque.
Glitter Queen
Tales. I like that.
Okay, Blaze, Glitter Queen Tales. What do you think? Let's do that.
I think that's it.
Glitter
Queen Tales.
All right, so welcome to the first edition of Glitter Queen Tales. Today is Sunday, June 30th, 2013. We're in Katy, Texas, a small suburb outside of Houston, and like I had said in the other one, but we didn't really elaborate. It's the home of Renee Zellweger, went to high school here, Katy High School.
And I mentioned Kevin Black.
Yes. Renee Zellweger.
And Clint Black, let's not forget the
popular
brother.
The Black family. When they wrote up Renee Zellweger in like People magazine or other magazines, I can remember reading about her maybe 15 years ago about how she's from Katy. And it said a town so small they didn't even have a movie theater. Like we were the little shit-kicker town in the middle of nowhere. Like you had to travel for miles and miles. When literally one exit up the freeway there was a movie theater. So I think they just like to play it up like Katy was this little teeny tiny town.
We're considered the rice town because Katy was once rice fields.
Really?
Yes, and also it was a very church town.
I was going to say it's called something like the City of Churches or something.
The City of Churches, correct.
There is literally the most churches per distance between churches. There's a ton of churches in this area.
Well, I read just last week in a magazine that David had brought home, in fact, a Christian magazine from the grocery store, one of the free magazines, and it said that Katy, it had a little thing on Katy, and it said that Katy used to have the Welcome to Katy road sign, and it listed, all the churches were listed on the road sign, like 14 churches. Now understand, Katy is quite a small demographic area, very tiny. And
a few years ago I remember when I heard about the church thing I was in Dallas visiting Terry and Jennifer, and Jennifer was reading something about Katy. And at the time, I think it said there was 40,000 people in Katy. So when you think about 40,000, that's a lot, but it's really tiny compared to Houston. The city of Houston is the fourth largest city in the country.
Well, when I lived out here originally, I've been in this house 21 years, this coming September 29th. 21 years. And there was nothing around me here. Yeah. Nothing. Now, we are one of the highest interstate corridors. I'm like a block and a half from the Interstate 10 is to the south of me, and literally all along the feeder road for miles has been bought out, and they're putting strip malls and strip centers. And
it should be noted too that feeder road Texas and Houston is one of the few places in the country that use the term feeder road. And they don't even know what that is.
It's one way on one side and another, like east, going west on the north side and going east on the south side. We're back in Illinois, where I was born and raised, Chicago. You have your feeder road, the roads alongside the freeways, are both traffic. You go east and west or north and south on the side of the freeway. So, but here you have to make a U-turn, if you need to go back the other way.
Right.
And that's kind of interesting because I had never seen that before.
I'm always
in Texas.
thrown when you do come across roads that are two-way on the side of the freeway. I'm always
absolutely.
like, freaked out by that because I'm so used to it just going the one way.
One way. The other thing, there's no sidewalks in a lot of the subdivisions.
Yeah.
You are walking on the street, and there are no alleys, where back in Illinois, everybody has an alley and a garage.
Yeah.
Here, the garages are attached kind of to the side of the house, and you enter them from the front rather than an alleyway
up
in the
the
back.
driveway.
Right. So, and we have the yearly Rice Harvest Festival in Katy, which is a big, huge festival.
True.
But it's a very nice town. Whenever I've gone, and I'm a big city girl, born in Chicago, raised in Chicago, though I've lived here in Texas now almost the amount of time I lived in Illinois, and I actually do think I've made the transition many years ago. About 10 years ago, I went to visit my friend, my best friend, who died since then, Dolores, and her nickname was Cookie. And I was at her house. She was having heart tests, and she didn't want to go through the heart test, so she flew me in from Katy to Chicago, and I stayed with her. And as I was laying in bed that night, because she had a very strict rule, into bed by 9 p.m., no radio, no TV. So I'm laying there in the bed in the guest room, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to go home. And it was the first time I ever had heard myself saying, this was my home. And I thought in my head, quietly, because you weren't allowed to speak, no noise, I thought, oh my God, home. I've made the transition, and I didn't know it. Because all the reasons, when I had moved to Texas with my husband, I had been married to Ramon, my youngest two sons, Bernard and Jean, who are now 33 and 39. And I had their dad, who is from the Philippines, originally from the Philippines, so my sons are what we call mestizos.
They don't use that word.
Yeah, well...
They don't use that term anymore.
Colleen calls them tweeners.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you do. That's jokingly. That's not racist. It's just a pet term.
It is racist, probably.
It's a pet term for her brothers.
They're multiracial.
And the uniqueness of our family. We have a yours, mine, and ours family. I have 3 stepchildren, which are...
Back to the thing we were talking about.
All right, this is hard for me because I'm so multifaceted and my brain goes in so many...
That's what Blaze told me. Oh, by the way, just as a side note. Blaze is like, Nana wants to do this. I think it'd be really good, and it's good that you're doing it with her because Nana has a tendency to drift off, and you can pull her back. I'm like, well,
and I don't know.
Thinking of the last hour and a half where we were like, woo, all over the place with it.
Well, I don't know if I'm always drifted off or if that's partly dementia now that drifting off. I'm joking. I'm joking. I've always been a little scattered because I've had so many interesting. This is why when people tell me I'm interesting, it's very hard to think of yourself as interesting because I'm not well educated. I don't have like a high school diploma. A college diploma. Yeah, I went to college after I was 40 for 2 years and have credits, but I never finished any particular degree. I've
met lots of college educated people who are dull as dirt.
Well, there you are. I'm not dull.
Doesn't matter.
Maybe that's it. I'm not dull. I'm a humankind lover. I love men. I've always loved men. I'm not a whore. I'm not...
Just so you know.
Yeah, but where was I going? Where was I going? Being this is the first podcast, it's very hard.
We're going to back it up
now. I was talking about the coming here.
You're talking about
I came here first. No, I said I came here first, 1979, because my husband, the oil boom was on, and he and his brother, who also lived in Chicago, decided we were going to go visit my brother in Dallas, and then Ramon was, as a side note, let's go to Houston, Texas, and check it out. And we come to Houston, and he decides, okay, I'm going to stay here with the car and get a job and take a room at the YMCA, and you and the kids get on the Greyhound bus and go back to Chicago. you sell our house. We lived in a suburb called Elmwood Park outside west of Chicago, kind of tiny like Katy, really.
Yeah.
And I got to get on the Greyhound bus with my 3 children and go back to Chicago.
Up. So let's discuss that.
Oh,
this
yeah.
Scenario. I remember the trip down at
going to see Dennis and his family in Dallas. Easter. 1978. No. Oh, 79.
Yeah, 79.
Easter. Right.
Now, let me ask this. You had no discussion about moving to Texas?
None. Nope.
Not a word, not a peep.
But everybody knew they were having the oil boom.
And that's the funny thing, too.
Because neither Ramon or Eddie were in the oil industry.
We're not working in the oil industry. So how would that boom affect them in any way?
What can I say?
All right.
That's
so they just thought money would flow from every orphan,
right.
Every
I guess
avenue
they thought
down here.
Somehow they would hook up with that.
We get to Houston just to check it out.
Right, just to check it out as a side trip from
and
Dallas.
If I'm not mistaken, there was a tropical storm going on.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
I don't remember which one it was.
Our first peek into the tropical weather.
I remember
hurricane.
We stayed downtown.
Absolutely, in a hotel.
And it was the Holiday Inn on Main Street.
There
downtown.
you are, Holiday Inn on Main Street.
And I remember as we got out of the car and walked into the hotel, there was like a foot of water in the lobby of the hotel.
The waves were coming in the lobby.
And there was a guy canoeing down Main Street.
That's right.
And the rain was just torrentially downpouring. And we were like, really? This is the place? I mean, why are we here? You know, like, it was horrible. I was like, this is crazy. And I remember we were
How old were you then? 79?
11.
You were 11.
Yeah.
Terry was 10, and Bernard was...
I was just shy of I was turning 12 that summer, but 11. So
Bernard was 5.
Yeah. Jean was yet to be.
Yes.
And so we're in the hotel room, Terry and I remember us watching TV, and Marvin Zindler, who was a local newscaster, and he was, you know, historically a lot of people know he was the one who brought down the Chicken Ranch, the prostitution house that spurned here.
It was here.
That spurned the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas story.
Movie.
Well, it was a musical before it was a movie. But yes, so he was responsible for helping close it down, shut it down, basically. But Marvin Zindler was this really out there sort of character person, and he would wear these giant blue glasses on TV, and he had this white wig, and he wore this white suit, and
he was fascinating, really.
He was like,
funny,
he would sign off. His sign off was always Marvin Zindler, Eyewitness News. And we thought he was an actor. We thought it was a joke. We didn't realize that was actual news. Like, we'd never seen such a display up in Chicago our whole life. You know, we just had serious newscasters that we saw.
Right.
And coming down here and seeing that guy, we were like, that was a real news thing? I mean, what? And
then the afterthought of that, Ramon decided to stay in the YMCA downtown.
Okay, so how did that conversation go?
He just told me.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't even remember other than I'm going to stay here.
Now, wait. Now, did he have a job in Chicago?
Yes.
So he was just going to quit his job?
Right.
I'm quitting my job.
Right.
And you didn't say anything.
Wait a minute, it might have been when he was in between jobs.
Okay.
Because he had taken a job at Ramon, by the way, had been a teacher of medical technology at the University of Cebu City in Cebu, in the Philippines. But when he came to the United States, of course, all the credits and all the college education he had back in the Philippines, you know, when you come from a foreign country, it does not necessarily transfer over to the States.
Yeah.
And because he was already a man in his late 30s, early 40s.
No, he was in his late 20s.
I mean, when he came here.
He was 20s.
Right, late 20s. But now, when we were coming to Houston, he was in his late 30s.
Right.
And isn't it funny? Now you have people going back to college in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s. But back in his mindset, I guess he didn't think, I don't want to go to school again. He had even been in medical school at one time, and he felt he didn't have what it took to complete that. Because
Oh, he didn't?
No, he was more of a
Oh.
party guy. At that time, he was young. He was in his 20s. He wasn't thinking, oh, if I stay and do this, I'm going to become a doctor. You know,
Wow.
he didn't have that, feeling.
Okay.
So, thus why he switched to medical technology, became a teacher at the university. But here, he only worked as a medical technologist.
Right.
And there's a difference. There's a difference of med tech versus medical technology, because he did have a Bachelor of Science in medical technology.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
All right.
So that's why he always got the supervisor job. He'd always wind up in
You would
charge
think he
of
would
the
have had
lab.
gotten way more money with a bachelor's
Oh,
degree.
people think hospital people make a lot of money, but they don't. He probably would have been better to go to nursing school
Yeah,
here,
he would've
and he
more
would have
money.
made way more money than the supervisor of the lab.
Well, okay,
But
so anyway.
thus, he just, I think, in Elmwood Park, because we had a home in Elmwood Park,
Yeah.
and I think he was in between jobs, and that's why we even took the trip to Dallas at Easter, because he was looking for another job. He had either gotten fired or quit. I think he quit, using me as the excuse to quit the job, that his wife was having issues, mental issues, I think it was,
Yeah.
and that he had
now,
to quit.
Did you not say anything because you guys had been through that rough period where you almost split up and you had moved out? and
Maybe
all of
that was why.
So you were like, whatever it takes.
Or maybe I thought whatever
we're
it
gonna go
takes
with
to
this.
succeed. I was always a woman who would follow her husband because I was
But
brought
I mean, I'm not
up.
saying you shouldn't have done it, but I'm saying no conversation. I
No.
mean, if Wayne had just announced.
Colleen, I didn't have a big conversation when I was my first marriage. I was married to tend to like foreign men, My first husband was from Ireland. Colleen's father was from Ireland. Terry's father, who was my first husband, was from Ireland. Ramon from the Philippines. That ought to give you a little peek
Yep.
at put me in a room of 300 men, and who are the men that will come up to me? Every time. It's the foreign men. Don't know. When they had that commercial in the 2000 for the bicentennial with the Statue of Liberty, bring me your homeless, your hungry, the Statue of Liberty
whatever it says
commercial,
on
I'd
the
be
Statue
like,
of
look, there's my commercial on TV. There's my theme. Just a joke, folks. Yes, I didn't talk to Terry Ryan when we moved to Nova Scotia. It was his decision. He was the head of the household. He was the husband, in quotes, the man, in quotes. As you said, the disproportionate, how do you say that word? Disproportionate disparity between the roles of men and the roles of women back in the day of when I was born and growing up.
Like, part of the reason why you want to do this is sort of like to work out
This is like therapy for me.
Sort of like a therapeutic
Absolutely.
thing.
Blaze
for you?
thought it would be a really good thing because, as a side note, I've just broken up with, or am still in the process of breaking up with and healing myself from a very intense 5-year relationship from David Mendoza Greenleaf,
Oh, God.
who was
That's
35
his
years
name.
younger.
Oh, my God.
Oh, hell no. I'm going to be totally honest
All
on this
right.
podcast. What's the point? If
You
you're
can be
not?
honest. I'm just saying maybe not saying someone's name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Too bad. That's what happens when you get
People can
involved
sue
with me.
you, but he won't because he's got issues.
Right.
He had no money, so he's not going to sue you.
I can hope. He has no money to
Yeah,
sue me,
no.
right? And I have no money to sue for.
Well, and you're not saying things that are untrue.
No, it's the truth.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. So going back to,
Making the transition from
we had
Illinois to Texas.
discussed in the other podcast, which I don't know at this
We
point.
don't know if that's
it's
gone.
recorded or not.
We had
but
an hour and a half, and she hit the button thinking she was taking it off.
now I'm
pause,
afraid. How am I going to?
and we don't
That's
know if
gonna
she
go.
deleted it. So
All right. Let's hope it's this one.
I think
sticks.
you pressed that middle button to stop it. That arrow.
That's the play. The
Yeah, I
arrow.
think you press it now and see what happens.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I pressed this one to pause,
Oh, I thought you pressed the middle button.
and the
to
red
pause.
one to record.
I thought you pressed the middle button to pause.
No,
Oh, all right. Okay.
I'm
then
not
don't
even
press
sure
it.
what the middle button does.
This
now.
is funny
Blaze
because
should've
we're
told
doing
me
it
this.
off of Blaze's.
Blaze
What do
should
you
have
call
taught
this?
me
A
this.
tablet.
Yeah, Blaze's tablet is recording, which actually the sound was pretty good on that when we
It was.
played back that other one.
All right, so back to the move.
What I'm saying is, no, we were
No
talking about the
conversation.
disparity between
Men and women.
how you felt about yourself, like being taught from an early age, just real briefly, with regard to the food in your house. Uncle Dennis got more food because he was bigger.
He was
and
a boy.
because he was a boy. And you got less food because you were a girl, which even not explained to you makes you feel
And I was a big girl.
like
I was
you're less
5'9".
important. Like, oh, boys are more important, so they get more stuff. You know, which then puts a kernel of that in your mind. And then when you get married, and you got married still with the era of women following their husbands. I mean, it was the sexual revolution or whatever you call it, but
in the
it depends on
60s,
where you are.
right.
You know, this was the
I
70s.
was not, well, I got married to
Oh,
Terry
well, Terry
Ryan in the
was
60s.
late 60s, yeah.
And I was not of the hippie sexual revolution group. I was
Right.
the nerdy, not the nerdy smart kid, just the nerdy kid.
Right.
But the classy nerdy kid. I didn't look like an Urkel nerdy kid.
Right.
Thus, we were going back to our transition that I never questioned my husband's, either Terry Ryan or Ramon Echeverry, to coming to another country, another state, another city. I went with Terry from Chicago to Halifax, Nova Scotia, to Limerick City, Ireland. I went with Ramon from Elmwood Park, Illinois, to Katy, Texas, to Houston, Texas, to Katy, Texas.
Right.
The reason we moved out of Houston to Katy, by the way, was because of our children, because we felt that to be in the big city was not the best for them. We were afraid they'd get in trouble.
And we would have. Well, to be fair, Ramon had selected this apartment. Like in Chicago, we lived in like flat apartments that were like, it was sort of like a big house, and they would divide like the floors into apartments. So
Like two flats.
2 flats and a basement apartment they would have.
Right.
Basically.
Very
so it would be
nice.
2 floors, and it would be a full-on apartment, 2-3 bedrooms,
2
bathrooms, on each level. But Ramon comes to Texas and finds an apartment complex, one of these big complexes.
Multi-family of 100 families or more.
And they were huge. There were 3 huge apartment complexes, and I
In
remember Amherst, Belmont, and Concord. Those were
That's
the names
right,
of the
yes.
apartments. And we lived in Amherst, and it was right across from a new school they were building, which is the junior
Paul
high,
Revere?
Paul Revere middle school that I went to. But it wasn't open yet, so I had to. Well, yeah, that's a whole other story. But anyway, we get to Texas after a huge long road trip from Chicago to
Lord.
Texas, which is at least 1,200 miles. In the dead of summer, it was right after 4th of July weekend that we moved here,
Right.
right around to this time.
In fact, we were at
Time of
Aunt
year.
Kay's on
Yeah.
the 4th of
I
July. We
remember.
stayed at my aunt's.
Our last 4th of July in Chicago, and moved down here on the 7th, or drove down here on the 7th, right? July 7th.
No, I think we left the day
We
after.
left the 5th, but it took
Oh,
us 2
yeah,
days
and we
to
got
get
here the
yeah.
7th. Right, forgot.
Got here and to discover, first of all, Dad rented a first floor apartment, which is a no-no for Mom.
Oh.
There was absolutely not. No first floor apartment because of break-ins and crazy
I'm
people.
terrified of the creepy, mean,
And
horrible
he
people.
was like, I can remember walking into the apartment and opening up the refrigerator, and about what seemed like a bazillion tree roaches flew out of it.
Oh.
Now, in Chicago, there's no such thing as a tree roach. They don't have roaches there like they do
Oh,
here.
no, only the
They do.
filthy, dirty
If
people
you,
have roaches
if you live in the
Chicago.
projects, you might have a roach problem. People where there's tons of people or dirty people. You didn't have roaches in Chicago if you lived in a nice area and you were relatively clean. So coming down here where roaches are just no matter where you are.
Everywhere, no matter how clean you are.
Mom was hysterical. Then cap it off with our furniture was lost. The truck wasn't going to be here for 3 weeks. So we lived on, I'm assuming we slept on the floor, but
Yes, you did.
Dad bought Mom a recliner.
No, first an army cot.
Oh, an army cot.
Started out with the army
I
cot.
didn't realize we had an army cot. I remember the recliner, which Mom slept in the center of the room, in the chair, lights on, because
I had to watch for the roaches.
because there might be a roach. Because back complex down here, not only did you have the tree roaches, you had those German roaches, which are those little tiny, ugly-ass little brown roaches that become really hard to get rid of when they're in a population.
It just makes my skin crawl
so
thinking
disgusting.
of it. Yeah.
Like the kind where you flip on the light in the kitchen and
they scatter
and they're just all over your everything. It's repulsive.
Yes, it is.
And we used to have this little dog. I remember that little Dachshund we used to have, and it would eat the roaches. It would jump up on the wall and grab one and eat it.
Ew.
Yeah, it was the gross. His little wiener dog body would jump up and he would like snatch a roach off the wall and eat it.
Oh, that's disgusting. Weren't we feeding that dog?
Yeah, we were.
Or that was just extra protein
that was just
for
his
him.
thing. He just liked to chase
He's just like,
them.
ooh, dessert.
Yeah, nasty. So gross. So she cried every day. Because she hated it so much.
I hated Texas, hated the bugs. Oh my God, I was hysterical. Yeah. I have lived here since 1979. That's how many years?
That's 34 years now.
34 years I've lived here, and I have never walked around in bare feet. The minute my shoes come off the bed, they are in slippers.
Your feet, the minute your feet come off the bed.
The minute my feet come off the bed, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm in slippers. Yeah. I have 34 years of never. Back home in Chicago, you could walk around in bare feet in your home.
Yeah.
Oh, not here.
No.
Well, in my home here, you could. It's just I don't, because everybody will have an occasional tree roach.
They'll get in from outside, and it's summer, especially in the summer.
But even as afraid of bugs as I am, I will go after a tree roach because I now live by myself, and I'm not going to have them in my house. I'm going to go after them. Oh, God, no.
Yeah, the other night, this is a little side note story of recently. I'm sitting in our TV room, and I'm sitting down with my plate of food.
Oh.
And something falls. And Wayne's like, "Oh, that's a roach." I was like, "What?" I leap up. It was a big, huge tree roach.
That fell from where?
Was on the chair. Like, he had just been outside doing something in the front or whatever, so apparently it came in.
Ew.
At some point. And flew over, whatever, they fly sometimes.
Right.
It's disgusting.
Those are even worse than the other ones.
And Wayne doesn't kill anything anymore, so
he's a Buddhist.
Yeah, he catches it in the bug thing, and puts it outside.
You have a bug thing?
He has a couple of bug things around the house so that he can grab it quickly.
What are bug things?
Like a little jar. And
So
he grabs the jar, gets that one, puts it outside, and another one fucking flies in and lands on the door. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Lord.
Another.
Now I'm going to be jittery if I ever get to go visit you.
He's like, no, that's a new one. So, it's just we have a lot of trees outside. There's
look at my backyard. I have 8 trees in my backyard?
They're everywhere because it's summer and it's
one
hot.
on my side yard
and for water.
3 in my front yard.
But he's like, it's just a roach. I'm like, they're huge and they fly the wing and they make that
and they're
sound.
Creepy.
Sound.
Yeah.
Ugh, whatever. So that's just a side note. Anyway, so we live in the apartment. Within that 3 weeks, we moved to an upstairs apartment.
2nd floor, less burglars.
And
well, you could open your window because someone wouldn't be. I love to have the windows open. And if you're on the 1st floor and you have your windows open, you're inviting the ne'er-do-wells to come in your window.
Wow.
And there are ne'er-do-wells everywhere.
Well, true. Even with a 2nd floor window open.
Absolutely, but
it's not like it was incapable of getting to the 2nd floor.
Well, you would have had to have a ladder or pull, you couldn't get into the window. It just gave me that false sense of security.
Right.
And yet, I live in a ranch house now, 1 story, by myself, turn every light off. Even my grandson says, Nana, don't you leave a light on outside, your back door and your front door? I'm like, no. Why? It'll cost me money.
Yeah, we turn ours off too, the outside lights.
Yet, do you know the police, by the way, side note, police say burglars or people that want to get in and harm you will single out a house that has no lighting on.
Oh, really?
And the police do suggest you keep an outside light on. But I do have, motion detector lighting is the best one where,
we do too.
If someone would come, it would light up.
All right, so, let's talk about something. Let's see. Now we're at 30
Well,
minutes.
you were asking me about Ramon making the decision
Right,
Had
I mean,
we
I
discussed
can't
it back at home, like I'm
imagine-
thinking of maybe relocating
Yeah,
to.
I can't imagine making it a life. I mean, that is a huge life-changing decision. Moving to another state,
Right,
getting a new job, and
right.
expecting
And
your
having me to
wife
quit
and
my job,
children.
I had to sell a house, wait for you kids to finish school, quit my job, give them notice, and get the house ready to move, pack up a house, while he was here in Texas working.
Right. So he got a job fairly quickly, apparently.
Yes, he did, at Rosewood Hospital, where Gene was born, my last son.
And then he found the apartment, the shitty apartment.
Right. He found the apartment before we came.
Which I have to give him a little bit of credit for, because the apartment that Uncle Eddie, his brother, selected was on Chimney Rock.
Oh my God.
Which is,
Only if you live here would you know what Chimney Rock and 59 is like.
it was a horrible little dumpy ass shitty apartment.
Oh, it's the neighborhood. It's
And
a
he
very rough neighborhood.
5 daughters and 2 sons.
Uncle
Everybody
Eddie
in
had
this little
7
apartment.
kids.
You know, they eventually moved to the same apartment complex we were living in for a brief moment.
Well,
of time.
in fact, I came to visit him here in Houston on Memorial Day weekend before we moved down here in July.
Oh, you did?
And
Where the hell
in
were we?
fact, in case,
Oh, okay.
Memorial Day weekend, they had a huge plane crash at O'Hare Airport the very day I
yeah,
left.
I remember that.
And
yes.
Aunt Kay thought there was no way I would leave because of this huge plane tragedy at O'Hare Airport.
Yeah.
But I got on the plane and left on
Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend to come here
Right.
to visit my husband.
Yeah.
And I went to the apartment to visit. We stayed in a motel while I was here for the Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
But I did go to the apartment to visit with Eddie and see where they were living. And that's when I told Ramon, no way.
Oh, so you were the one who.
No way could
Make sure you don't
we
get us an apartment
live
here.
in that apartment in that area of town.
Yeah.
I just could not do that.
Well, I remember years before this when Eddie and Letty had bought like a condo or whatever.
Townhouse,
A townhouse.
yeah.
Which the townhouse itself
Beautiful
was nice,
townhouse, yeah.
but the neighborhood was super
Oh,
shitty, right
yeah.
in Chicago. And Ramon
Rough.
wanted to buy a townhouse in that
Right
same
there.
place.
Where
So we
Virgie
could
and
all be
Ellie
together.
bought one too
And
in the
you
same.
were like, absolutely not.
not.
No
Can't
way.
do it.
Thank God.
I've
'Cause that was
always,
a
I mean,
shitty
though
area.
I may have been transient, I had been brought up transient, moving from apartment to apartment to apartment to apartment our whole life with my parents. For my parents, it was that they didn't pay the rent. Now, as a child, I didn't know that. I just thought we moved a lot. It didn't.
Right.
It took till I became an adult, a young adult, to realize, this is why we were moving all the time. Mid-school year, which is always such a joy for a child.
Right.
And I went to 12 schools in Chicago, all on the west side. We always lived on the west side. And that was within 12 years of schooling, and I went to the same high school for 4 years. So that's a peek into that.
Yeah.
And so I tended to also, what would you say, emulate that in my own life of moving. But I always, as they said on the Jeffersons, moving on up,
Right.
moving on up. And that's what I did. I always moved to a better area because I was very concerned with my children getting good education at a good school and living in a safe neighborhood. Thus why I kept moving. Just to peek into that. So when I came here, it was like, oh no, don't pick a place for us over here. Thus why he picked Amherst.
Yeah. And he probably picked that location also because Rosewood Hospital was fairly close to there.
Absolutely.
And, where he worked.
Right, within a
Just
couple of miles.
Miles down the street.
Right.
And so at that point in time, the west side of Houston was pretty good area to live in. It's not considered a bad area, although there's a lot more crime than there used to be.